Guys, what's up? It's Caden with the Code Bros. Today I'm going to go over for loops and while loops. I'm going to just kind of jump into this because there's a lot to cover. Alright, so loops. So today we're going to learn about the while loop, we're going to learn about the for loop, and we're going to kind of review a bit of conditionals just throughout the summary of the lesson. So while loops. While loop does the way it's set up, the structure of the loop is going to be you define it as while, and then you put parentheses here, and it goes while some condition is true. We'll see kind of a few different kinds of conditions you can put in there throughout the lesson, but as long as a condition is true, it's going to loop through and do some things in here. You'll want to update that condition at the very end of the loop typically. Sometimes you update it at various points through the loop, but typically you just want to do an update towards the end. And then at the end it jumps back up here, checks if it's true. If it's true, it loops back into the section of code here and does those things again. If it's not true anymore after the condition's updated throughout the loop, it will kick out and go to the next line of code that ends up being down here. For loops are pretty similar. The structure of the loop is going to be for some variable. Typically it's like int I is the default you use, and you typically will set it equal to 0, and then you say while I is less than some value. That value is typically going to be a variable. You want to do that so you don't have magic numbers in here. You don't want to just put I is less than 10 or something like that, because if you want to base that value off of a variable. And then at the end you increment I. Sometimes, I mean, you can do all sorts of things. You can add 2 to I, you can add 3 to I, you can do whatever you want. Just typically with a for loop, it's for iterating through some functionality. So with iterating, you do it kind of one at a time. So that's why you're typically going to just increment it by 1. And then the loop is to do some stuff inside of here. And then at the end, it actually comes up here to this part of the code and increments I as updating the condition here. So for loops are typically going to be used when you know a certain number of times you need to loop through that specific section of code. And then conditionals. So just to give you an idea of some things you can do, you can use a greater than sign, which is this alligator here. Less than, this is the equal to, it's double equal signs, so that is a comparison there. You can do like less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, and then you can also do things like inverting, so not equal to. Perfect, so let's take a look at some code. So this is last week's code we have over here, and pretty much what we're going to start off by doing is we're going to make an array of these this person data. So we're going to have multiple people, you could say. So I just want to make the unique ID that each of them will have. You know, say this 2 people have the same first name. Say they're named Tim. This unique ID will let us identify which Tim is who, without need for like the last name to check their age or anything like that. You'd actually you could base it completely off ID. So we'll go ahead and delete all this, keep that return 0 in there, and then I'm just kind of going to copy and paste some code in here that I already have written, and I'll kind of explain it line by line. So the first thing I'm going to paste in here is we're going to make a constant integer. So this constant integer is actually going to allow us to create an array of workers based off that number there. So as you can see, this constant integer is set to 10. Just real quick, if I try and change number of workers and try and set it equal to 5, it gives me this error. Expression must be a modifiable L value. That means since it's constant, it's always going to be 10. You can't change it. You can't add to it, reassign it values, anything like that. Now the reason we have it as a constant is because in C++, unless you're working with dynamic memory, which we aren't yet, we're working in static memory, and we'll get to dynamic eventually, but for now we're working in static. And so we do need a constant value here to define the array. If I was to take this const out and just make it num of workers, now we have this error because this expression must have a constant value. So we do need it to be constant here. This integer worker ID, this is going to be used a bit later in the program. You'll be able to see what it's for. But for now, just kind of have it there ready to go. And you always want to assign variables when you declare them. So just go ahead and assign that to 0 to start with. We're going to have a choice variable. That's for input on whether or not you'd like to display another user or another person, I should say. But we'll get to that later as well. And then this boolean done, this is going to be a condition we use in a while loop later on. But to start off, let's get a for loop written. And again, I'm just going to copy and paste this in. It's because there's a lot to cover today. I want to make the video short though. So just go ahead and pause if you need to and type this out, whatever you need to do. So we have this for loop, and we're saying for int I equals 0. We're going to say I is less than num of workers, so that variable up here is 10. So it's going to loop through this loop 10 times, and it's going to increment I each time. So we're going to do a quick display and say creating person I. So this is going to start at 0, then go to 1, 2, 3, all the way up through 9. So 0 through 9 is 10 people. That's why we have number of 10, or number of workers is set to 10. So we're going to get 10 different kinds of workers. Each of them are going to have that unique ID. They're going to have an ID of 0 through 9. But we're going to set all their names to first name default, last name name. Their genders are male. The age would be 0, and the hourly wage is $9.25 as a floating point instead of a double. And the reason I did $9.25 is that's the minimum wage here in Oregon, so that's kind of what I'm going for there. Alrighty, so I'm going to copy and paste a bit more code. This block of code is just kind of a prefix to a condition, and what I mean by that is it's kind of it's a block of code that's used to update a condition before we hit a while loop, and then at the end of the while loop we're also going to more or less take this code and rewrite it towards the end to decide whether or not we want to stay in that while loop. This code here will determine whether or not we go into it the first time, and then towards the end of the loop we'll pretty much use this same code here to determine whether or not we want to keep going into the loop one by one. So this next part, I'll go ahead and just kind of code by hand so you can see the structure as I build it. So we're going to say while not done. Oh, I should explain this a bit better. Okay, so we're going to see out, would you like to display a user? I'm going to change that to person actually, and yes or no, since this is a person up here. If they input yes, then done is going to be set to false. Since we assigned it up here, realistically that doesn't need to occur here. But just it's a good thing to have. It's more clear on what it's doing. So we're going to assign that to false, meaning we aren't done. If they put in any other value, we're going for an N obviously, but say they put in A, it'll work, kind of a thing. But say they put an N, done will be set to true, so we won't even enter this while loop here. We'll just skip over and hit that return 0 and it'll exit the program. If we put in Y, then it will make sure we go into the while loop, and here's what we want to do in here. So we're going to see out, please enter the ID of the worker, I should say person, you want to access. Okay, so this is going to pop up a message, and now we're going to do a quick cn from the console into worker ID. Okay, so that was the variable we set up here. It's an integer, and it'll hold just a whole value, an integral value. And so what we're getting at is this is going to be the worker ID they chose. So we have different people. We have the different IDs 0 through 9 with this array. So we're going to access different people through this command here. And now I'm going to go ahead and paste a bit of code. Now this looks kind of funky. Pretty much what's happening here is I'm putting a big line followed by, along the edge here I have that pipe character just to kind of build a wall to the left of all the information, and then a line after it. And what we're going to display inside of this kind of more or less a brick is the workers. We're going to display that worker ID that the user input. So say I input 5 would be displayed here. And then we're going to access the different spots in the array as well. So person 5 is going to have the first name of default, last name of name, because all these are the same, but their ID is the big one we want to check out and see that it can change, because as we loop through this for loop, this was set to I, which is going to set it from 0 to 9 as each person goes by. So say I put in 5, it's going to display 5 here for that ID, but all the other values will be the same. And then as I was saying, just to update that while loop condition towards the end of the array, you also want to put out something to update this done condition. And I'm just going to keep it consistent. Would you like to display a person? Or, there we go, another person. And so we'll input into that display choice again. And yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at how this runs and what it does and that sort of thing. So as you can see, creating person, here I'll increase the size a bit, so go properties, and something like 28. Yeah, that's nice and big. Alright, so we're creating person 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So those are the 10 people we created. Would I like to display a person? Sure. So I type into Y. Let's say I want to display person 5, as we were saying. As you can see, worker's name is default name that we had set to all of them. Worker ID is 5. Worker age is 0. Worker gender M. Worker pay 925. Would I like to display another person? Sure, yes. Let's say I want to display person 9 this time. As you can see down here, worker ID changes to 9 because we're accessing that 9th spot in the array, and their ID was set to 9. Another thing we can do, and I'll go ahead and do it just up here, is we'll change around workers sub 3. We'll say their age equals 15, so there's one change. And then for workers sub, we'll do a string copy in the first name and change the first name. So we'll do string copy workers sub 6. Sure. We'll change their first name to, let's change it to Caden. And now if I was to display 3 and 6, you would still see that ID change from 3 to 6, but worker 3 is going to have their age set to 15, and worker 6 will have their first name set to Caden instead of that default name value. So let's go ahead and do that and just kind of access those values. So we got 3, and as you can see, worker ID 3, their age is 15 instead of 0, and then another person will access 6, and the name is set to Caden instead of default. And we'll hit type it in, it kicks us out of the program. Alrighty, so again, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them. If you need anything explained a bit more, I'd be glad to go over things with you guys. Thanks for watching the video. This was kind of a long one, but we'll keep building from here. Thanks for watching.